to focus on while here, and leave with folk before you fly back out to the West Coast?
Well, it's still a principle, a principle. The thing that I wanted to read them was just this little thing that I read before every reading, because it's why I write.
Would you mind reading it?
I'd love to. There was a caliph in Spain, and he was true, he was real. He said, I have to sit up because his voice comes from a different place. I have now reigned above 50 years in victory and peace, beloved by my subjects and dreaded by my enemies and respected by my allies. Riches and honor, power and pleasure have waited on my call. You hear that? Nor does any earthly blessing appear to have been wanting in my years. During this life of wonder I have kept count. This is on his tombstone. Now you know he's dead, ain't no sense in lying. I have kept count of the days of happiness which have been given me. They number 14. Now he had all that to work with, all the power, all the money. He got 14. It says, place not thy confidence in this present world, but I don't always use that line. But I used the number 14, and people just say, oh, and I said, listen, do you know what he told you? Then you don't have all he has. And how many happy days do you think you're going to get? You have to be careful about your choices. That's what makes the difference. What you choose to do, it can either eat up your life or add to your life. You know what I'm saying? You have, you know, like if you don't mind my digressing, like these kids that shoot up each other or just kill each other, or murderers or serial killers and things. And you say to a young person, usually black, but I have to include white because they're our brothers, and we say, do you ever think when you get ready to kill somebody about the 20 or 30 years you're going to spend in prison before you pull that trigger? Just that trigger costs you 20 or 30 or 40 or all your life because you could get killed there. Choices. And these kids running around killing each other in their neighborhoods, they don't even know about life yet. Enough to want to savor it.
They lose it before they live it.
Yes. But Satan is very strong. And what do you suppose it is he makes them want? Power. He uses that power. Remember what he promised you? Offered Jesus on that mountaintop? You can have all these kingdoms. Well, it's just another way of saying you could have all this power and they'll all be scared of you, or afraid of you. That's all. And he doesn't offer anybody anything worth anything. And 2 to 1, he won't pay off. And he's not a caring master, because the minute you get in trouble, he leaves you in it and puts his foot on you and sticks you down in there more. He's not the one to follow, because it ain't gonna work. Power, you can get killed with it. Well, just look at, go all the way back to Rome and Caesar. All his friends stuck their knife in him so no one could be blamed, and he was just one of many. Who is it that can't sleep at night? The one at the top, the king with the crown. Because he doesn't know. You never know.
For you.
That's right.
That power is so intoxicating, everybody wants to take a
Everybody wants it. Well, it was also my intention. You know, I grew up loving wisdom because, you know, nobody likes a whipping. And I knew that you know, and when your mother whips you, it's a whole different thing than when the world whips you, because you may never get up from the world. So, and I knew my mother loved me, but I don't like being whipped in any way or any form by any man or woman, but I didn't have to worry because, see, I'd go crazy when I fight. So therefore, I just can't see anything, and I almost killed another lady who was, I was scared to death of her. My knees were actually knocking, but once she slapped me, I couldn't see anymore, and all I could do was grab her. But anyway, but I couldn't, and I don't like to fight. The characters, they come because I know they happen in life. And I know there's a way out of that because of my Bible study. You don't have to go through that. Plus, being poor is not the worst thing in the world. And plus, being ugly, I get so angry that people never write about ugly people or people who people call ugly. Or people who, you know, I've written a lot, they're in my books, because these people have hearts and they want to be loved. And so I write a lot about them. Because, you know, there's some women who have never walked down the street and a man turned his head and said, "Hey, baby," never. Or his eyes followed her down. And I'm not saying women as opposed to men, men have the same thing, but I'm saying that that's one thing women love, being admired. It feeds them.
And there are probably some folk who walk down the street looking what we call beautiful on the outside and feeling ugly on the inside, not believing it.
We know that, yes, yes. The fact that you get so ill, you know, but actually I don't mind aging, and I wouldn't go to one of those cosmetic people for anything in the world, because you know what you've got now and you don't know what you'll have when anybody gets through cutting around your face and your behind. My daughter knows she's going to get a breast, take away the size, and I forget the name.
Breast reduction.
And I told her, just be careful, I said, and see some of his after effects and things, because people get through with you and you don't know, but reducing shouldn't be had. She's not trying to get a beautiful breast, she just wants less. But I wouldn't cut a single thing I have. I really wouldn't, and I have hated my legs all my life. And
Too long, too big.
Too little. People like big old pretty legs. But you know, about 7 years ago, I looked down there and I saw my legs and I fell in love. I said, "You're pretty, you're pretty." And they were. And I looked at them, "You are pretty, look at those." And they just, I don't know why I hated them when I was growing up. Everybody liked big legs. You know, legs are there's something about them. I don't know what it is. I guess I had to almost lose them with that shingles. But I don't know if that's it or the fact that I really finally realized legs, nobody cares about legs. What is that? Some man said they're the first things they move out the way. It's called Wait a Minute World. And this is what I'm going to read, and she lets me talk, and of course that's in some things. And it was, I just woke up in the morning, and like I do most of my days, and it was such a nice sun. Are you running out of tape?
Nope.
Such a nice sunny day, and my house is always quiet and serene, and because there's no one there but me, and I just love the peaceful of it. And I flick the switch and the radio will come on with some nice music, or put the record player on and something soothing. I love my house, and I love everything in it, and I love my music, and I love my books, and I love my cat, who gets up on the bed without a sound, you know, and walks over to me and goes, you know, and I say, "Oh," and you know, I love it. I'm going home. But anyway, I woke up this morning, and my mind just, you know how your mind does, and for no reason at all, it flicked back, and I saw myself when I was about 8, and I didn't know when I did see that's how old I was. And then she started talking to me. And I'll give you an idea of how it was. You remember that day? Remember that day that Dave shut me out of that? And so I thought a minute, and I remembered that day. And then I left her there, and I looked all around the neighborhood where we lived, these houses. And I was about 8, we were during the Depression, and there was an old Spanish man on this side of us, lived in a big old grand house by himself, and a poor white couple. Well, they weren't poor like poor, but it was Depression. And she had a sister who was an alcoholic. And the kids were a little ugly, needed their clothes washed and things, and so were we, I guess. Noses running all this time, but my mother wouldn't allow certain things, so therefore we did a little better. You want to move so that anyway, and so as I saw all these things and I was reminded, and I said, well, I didn't say anything except that I wanted to hear about it. And either I got up, I don't know what But anyway, over a period of days, she told me this little story. And then I laid there in bed when she really got going. And I just listened to the whole thing. And I loved it. And I tried to hold on to her voice, because my voice, it was that 8-year-old's voice. And I don't think I held on to it. I'm gonna start it. I was a quiet little girl. I had a little rocking chair and was always rocking and watching those around me through my 8-year-old eyes. Wasn't looking for anything special because I didn't know anything special to watch for. I didn't know anything much about life, but I knew there must be something to it or in it because people were so busy doing something all the time. That is my whole thing at that time. People were still new to me. Almost everything they did seemed to be interesting, if only for a little while. I had a brother, so I played a lot of boy games with him. He played hard, so I knew how to fight and wrestled a little. I could also throw a football, not real good, but I could hold it and throw it. But my favorite thing was dreaming, reading, and watching people. My daddy didn't like to work for other people, white people. He was from the South. He had worked on a car lot down there. One day his boss asked him to take and park a car, and he drove to California where his sister was, and who had been urging him to come. I'm so glad he did. That's how I came to be born in California. So as she went on, it became more interesting, and so I sort of stuck with her. And one thing I like what she said, I told you about the two neighbors. It's an interesting, and it was true. One man, Dave, I don't remember his last name if I ever knew it, was a good worker and stayed with us kind of long time. My mama said he could have dinner with our round table if he was sober. My daddy paid him a little money and gave him the small room off the garage. That was important because he lived in the garage. Dave had a drinking problem too. The Spanish man had a drinking problem. Everybody had a drinking problem at that time. I just lived, grew, watched, and learned about life and people. Didn't know what I was learning, but it was life, and I was very interested in life. I still am. My best friend was my yellow dog lady and a tree. They were who I talked to and played with. Do you know trees have been some of my best friends all through life? And I hug them every time I get a chance, especially those that live around me. I didn't play with other kids very much. They had a messy way of fighting, and their noses were running too. And probably ours were too. Seemed silly to me, so I would go off with my dog or go sit by my tree, think or play secretary all by myself. I love to sit with paper and do that. Then this day came along I'm going to tell you about. The white lady next door asked my mother if my father could take her across town to pick up her sister. She had had a call that her sister was ill and needed some place to get well. So she wanted to go get her sister, pick her up, and bring her home. My mama said yes, so my daddy said yes, too. I rode with my father and our neighbor. It was night, and I remember sitting in the car waiting. I can still see it. A bright light was shining on the porch of the house where the sister was. Daddy helped our neighbor bring her sister out to the car. I remember the sister was slender and very pretty and red-headed child. I loved gold hair. Beautiful golden red hair. I wished my hair was golden red like that. I've always been in awe of shining beauty, nature or people. I stared at the pretty lady. I had thought she would be sick, but she was drunk. I was glad because I would rather her be drunk than really sick because you could get sober. And she was not ugly, nasty drunk. She was sad drunk. And at that time, I remember feeling that. So I was glad this child remembered. When we got home, my daddy helped our neighbor take her sister into the house. In the darkness of the car, I watched to the very end of their door closing. I cried, I used to cry so easy. Looking at people, I wouldn't know what was happening in their life, but I knew something. There was an aura around them that said sad or vulnerable. I watched to the end of the car. I cried for her sadness, even though I didn't know what real sadness was. I could feel what it was. That's what I have. All of my stories come from feelings. Then my father parked in our driveway and we went in our house. Now was more I didn't understand about life. I couldn't understand why such a pretty woman could be so sad and would want to be drunk. I didn't know what alcoholism was or what poverty could do. There was always some liquor at our house, but nobody drank it much. My mama did sometimes, then she would dance if somebody played our piano or a record. That sounds like we had something, but we didn't really. Anyway, I heard our neighbor tell my daddy she had gotten her sister and they were going to keep her away from liquor and sober until she could get on her feet. One thing my mother always did was insist on me understanding about life, and that is about manners and about the sense of things. So I was kind of ready, because I used to lay in bed and talk to her a lot. Then I forgot about it because she's going to keep her away from liquor until she got sober and could get on her feet. My mother was always reading every chance she got between housework or whippings and cooking. Sometimes she put on her overalls and went out to help Daddy separate the metals, but mostly we would sit up in bed and both be reading. I learned to love books, thank God. I didn't know how much time passed, maybe a week, maybe a day, maybe a month, but it wasn't a year. And one day when I was out playing in the backyard, I looked up and saw the next door lady come walking down our driveway toward my father. She had long, pretty legs with the wind whipping her dress. I can see it now. It was kind of a blue background dress with little flowers in it, and whipping her dress around her knees, and that golden hair was shining in the sun and blowing in the wind. She asked my father to take her back while her sister was at work to the house where he had picked her up. She was home alone. Daddy's eyes got big and round as he stared at her seriously. I saw that, and I remember because Daddy usually playing funny things with us kids. I thought he was playing with her. I knew my daddy knew what our neighbor wanted for her sister. Anyway, he laughed as he told her he couldn't do it right then. He had a few other things he had to do. My father weighed about 200 pounds and loved to laugh, so she couldn't get mad at him. He was pleasant in his refusal. She stayed around talking to him and Dave. I guess she was lonely. She stayed around talking to him and Dave. I guess she was lonely. I stayed around because I was looking at life. Now this is true. I knew that. You know how you know, it's a feeling. You know, something important was there. They were both poor, and I didn't put them together in my mind. But she was poor, he was poor. He didn't have a home either. Pretty soon my daddy did have to go off to pick up something for his garage. You want me to go ahead and read this?
Sure. You can read as much as you like, yes.
He went in the truck. He told the lady she should go home, but he left the truck and he left Dave and the lady alone. I think about that sometimes now that I'm older because I love my dad. This is how I know how my mother taught me. But I thought something was wrong. Dave was sober while he worked, but Dave was a drunk. Now, nobody had to tell me now. We already know she's supposed to stay away from liquor. So I believed something was wrong then, and I was only 8. And why would you go off and leave her with a drunk when she's supposed to stay away from around liquor? And she's pretty and white, too? I didn't think that then. After my dad drove off, Dave laughed and talked with the lady a little while. Then he went into our house and came back out with a bottle of wine. I was just a child, but I knew he shouldn't drink in front of that lady. I was leaning on the car set up on blocks with no tires on it. I watched him when he took his bottle into his little room off the garage, and he was laughing. I was looking at her as she thought for only a quick minute. Then she followed him into that room, his room. His door was open. I didn't move a muscle. You know how you are when you're a kid, you don't want them to pay attention to you, so you stay real still. I suspected something. I felt something in life was about to happen, but I didn't know exactly what. Dave stuck his head around the door, I guess to see if I was still there, and I was. He pushed that door shut. He closed my eyes out. I still didn't think I was nosy, I was curious. No, I needed to know what life was going on in that room. The drama in my mind was almost unbearable. I tried everywhere I could to find a hole in those walls. I didn't try to sneak, I was serious, but I never did find one. I heard low laughter from both of them, and after a while I didn't hear a thing, nothing. Then my daddy was back. He drove down the driveway, parked, and asked me where Dave was. I just pointed to Dave's room. I didn't say a word, you know. I was hoping that he would, you know, I'm saying something wrong in there. That's when my daddy sent me into the house. I wasn't mad, but I felt cheated of something. Now, I didn't know what was happening with Dave and that lady, but I still felt sorry for her. I felt sorry for her sister who was trying to help her. I didn't feel the same exact way about Dave. I still felt sorry for Dave, but I had stopped liking him. I didn't enjoy his little play jokes. I didn't like him to touch me or even playfully anymore. Dad didn't understand thoroughly why he was less to me. I lost respect for him. I knew something was wrong. If I knew it at 8, but there was something cheap and crooked about it to me. Maybe grown people do things like he did. He took advantage of her pain. She let him, but he kicked her when she was down. I was 7 or 8 years old, and if I knew it, he did. I didn't know exactly why, what happened until some years later when I was old enough to figure all out. I knew her sister was real hurt when she came home to find her sister drunk again. I know the lady was soon gone from her sister's house. Well, but now you know she was a drunk and she was trying to help her, but still, you cannot help some people because Satan's got hold of you, or that alcohol. Something. There's a sad failure between everybody. I'm a feeler kind of person. I feel most everything, even things from across the city or the world, especially if they are sad or hurting someone. I don't know why, but sometimes the whole damn world would look sad to me, and I would cry for no reason at all, then and now, even since I'm grown. As I think back and know what I know now about this depression, poverty, hunger, sickness, homelessness, and hope, all the things people have to deal with. Alcoholism was prevalent then and is prevalent now. We've had plenty of government, plenty more taxes, and they ain't fixed but a very few things for the people. And every time they get or might get a good government, they lie them off the map. And the people let the liars keep lying.